Good evening. Okay, so here's what's going on. People have been asking where are the windmills. That's what apparently most of you are here for, but that's fine because that's kind of my favorite thing that I do here anyway, so that's fine. Here's what I want to talk about. I've been having kind of a bummer week in terms of windmills. I've gotten a lot of other stuff done, but in terms of windmills, it's been a real 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. And here's why. So this was Windmill 20, right? This design worked really well. I loved it. I wanted to improve it. I wanted to make it bigger because I wanted to improve the power output, right? But in terms of the design, you know, the pitched flat blades all arranged in a circle, that was perfect. I love the way that it worked. So I've been running all of these. I keep posting things like get hyped, get ready for Windmill 21, and people keep getting excited, and then Windmill 21 never shows up. And so here's what's going on with that. Let me tell you a little bit about where we are with it, as well as kind of show you what I've been working on, because I have been working a lot on Windmill 21. In fact, that's the reason that there is no update video, is because I've been making so many improvements on it that it's like it makes me hesitate to post a new update, because then I know that everything's going to drastically change the next day. So it's like, but here's the thing. One of my subscribers, Mike, shout out Mike, was talking to me in a thread in one of my other videos, and I very much agree with what he said, where he said, I think more people would be interested in seeing the progress as well as the failures and the successes, everything, as opposed to just posting, you know, the finished windmill. And that is exactly what I wanted to do when I started this channel anyway. So we're gonna start doing more of that, which means that, and I'm okay with this, but I'm just saying, we're probably gonna be looking at less polished videos, but more of them. And I'm okay with that because I don't really like editing videos anyway. I kind of just like making the things and talking about them. So that's what we're gonna be doing from now on. So anyway, Windmill 20, right? We got this image in our brains here. I had some things that I wanted to tweak. So along came Windmill 21, at least the first version. This is version 1.5, I guess. You'll notice that this is just the turbine. This is not the actual like entire structure, right? And I can put it back on. Here's the thing. You see how easily I just put it in. It fell out that easily as well. Even though I just made this whole video explaining how to keep your bearings in place, I didn't follow my own advice because I've been that's kind of the thing when you're prototyping something anyway, is you're kind of caught between, do I really want the permanence yet, or do I want to finish tweaking it before I get to that point? So anyway, what happened with Windmill 21, the reason that I said I had kind of a bad week, is because I started working with this new type of board, okay? This is hardboard, not cardboard, hardboard. And it's great. It's much thicker, which isn't bad. If anything, it makes it more stiff and rigid, right? Which I'm looking for anyway. It cuts with my jigsaw, which the plywood, I was having such a hard time cutting plywood with my jigsaw. So I cut it with my hacksaw, and then I was getting made fun of from people being like, that's not the right saw to use to cut wood. I use what I have, okay? So this stuff is a dream. So as soon as I got this and started working with it and realized that this is what I want, I took half of the wind vane off. So when I did that, that made the whole pivoting system less responsive to the wind. And in fact, if you have too short of a wind vane, what I've noticed very often will happen is it will almost act like an impeller, you know, anytime a little gust of wind, because wind doesn't come in nice, even blows, right? Wind kind of comes from a general direction, but it's kind of slapping everywhere, every which way as it blows along. So what happens is if this is too short, it'll just kind of, actually I don't want to do that, pretend, because I'll knock it off again. But anyway, what happens is you will get these really, really quick movements, and that's obviously a problem. Because everything's not fixed in place yet, because I'm still in prototype mode, what happened is, because it wasn't facing the wind, when it's facing the wind, the force is pushing it back into itself, which is fine. It's making it tighter. But what happened was, every once in a while it would get mixed up and it would turn around and the wind would blow from the back of the turbine. And with these things, I mean, if you have a stationary turbine, it might as well be a wall up until the point where it starts spinning, right? That's why I always talk about why the rotational acceleration is really important for these things, is because they need to be able to speed up when the wind hits them, because up until they start spinning, it's just going to be a wall that blocks the wind. And if your setup can't handle that force, it's going to mess things up. And that's exactly what happened to me. So if you can see, I mean, what happens is, the force was applied from the back of the windmill. Okay, well, I can't make it happen, I guess, but the wind did. Anyway, it was just like that. And so the whole thing, the turbine blew down to the first floor. I live on the top floor of my building. And so the turbine fell off and it got all dirty. and some blades broke, and so then I was like, okay, well, do I fix them? So I've been in this hole for several days. I've been in a very big overhaul kind of mode, where I've been changing everything up. I've been working very hard on new things. It's just that those things, in my mind, weren't polished enough to show off yet. But I'm gonna start changing things up, and I'm gonna start documenting the progress and documenting a lot more of the failures in addition to the successes. I think it's just as important to document the things that did not work as the things that did. So that being said, I was already having some problems with this turbine anyway. The pitch was already increased from Windmill 20, but it needed to be just a little bit more. It was rotating too slowly. The rotary acceleration, rather, was too slow. So I wanted the pitch to be just a little bit better. Plus, when I realized how much heavier these hardboard sheets are than the plywood sheets that I've been using, then it was like, okay, yeah, we're really gonna need to up the pitch if we want this thing to be able to accelerate fast enough. So then another thing that I was working on is somebody in my comments suggested, well, if you have trouble with the supports, I always have a problem with the supports when I print this thing, because there's a slit where the blade goes, and it's always kind of a hassle. It's a tight little nook, so it's always hard to get the supports out. And somebody in one of my Instagram reels, I think, commented and said, why don't you print it like a clamshell? So you kind of sandwich the blade in and then you screw it into place. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. So I started trying really hard, basically all of yesterday in CAD, in Fusion 360, to try to model something like that. And I was trying to do so parametrically too, so it was even more of a headache. And I ended up giving up on that for several different reasons. One of them is because these turbines are fairly large, or at least the hub is. And so if you think about dividing it along the middle, well, you now have two large kind of circular shapes that you need to print on a 3D printer. And I realized that on my 3D printer, even though it's pretty big, I couldn't fit both of those on there at the same time. And so there are already several large parts on this build, and so I didn't want to make everything even worse by adding, two giant things that can only be printed by themselves. So we're just going to stick with the one. In addition, it was a nightmare to design, and it used more plastic. I'm sure I could have tweaked it to figure it out, but just preliminary tests, it looked like it was going to use more plastic than the previous normal version. So I figured I'd just deal with the support problem. It's not that bad either, and you can tweak it with some printer settings. Obviously, that will be a consideration that I put in the accompanying videos or whatever we end up doing for that. All of that being said, there are a couple things that are done. This sleek new wind vane, doesn't this look great in this new hardboard? At first, I wasn't quite sure if I was gonna like the brown, but I'm starting to get into it. I like the color scheme too, the brown and green. The reason I bought green plastic is because Christmas was gonna be approaching, so I figured for this windmill we'll do green, Christmassy, I don't know. But I really like the way that it looks. And so that vane is going to be there. That might be really long, I don't know if you can see that. Might be knocking down my pepper plant. And then what I was working on all afternoon today was these blades. So I have 6 of these blades now, or 8 of them, just in case I screw some up like last time. And they're very heavy, and we're going to be drilling and mounting them probably tomorrow. Hopefully I have time. And seriously, here's one piece of advice, something that I did wrong that you can learn from, okay? These hardboard sheets are such a dream to cut with a jigsaw. Oh my gosh, it was so easy. I've been trying to buy pre-cut pieces of plywood so that I would have to avoid cutting as much as possible. And what is that? Well, it's expensive and it's not very high quality, which are two things that I'm trying to avoid in this project anyway. So it's been a dream. I got a 4x8 foot sheet of this stuff for $12 at the Home Depot. So I am ecstatic about this stuff. It is very heavy. I couldn't find anything thinner than, I think this is 1/8 inch. It's about 5 millimeters. I couldn't find anything thinner than that, but that's okay. We'll try this out. On the new turbine blade that is printing right now, it's gonna be printing overnight, the hub, that one is going to have a pitch of 72.5 degrees, which is much higher or lower, I guess, more steep relative to the blade than all the ones that I've done in the past. So that's exciting. Hopefully we'll be able to, Windmill 21, the turbine, at least for it, when it was working, when it was fully put together and stuff, it was spinning ridiculously fast. And I was getting a good 10 volts or so out of it. So hopefully the increased weight of the hardboard won't be that big of a deal. Oh, and I measured the RPMs the other day to see how fast it was spinning, because I wanted to be able to estimate, just because you can get an app on your phone that you just tap, 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 and it tells you the beats per minute. So I was trying to figure out how much power it would be generating just kind of at a glance. And so I got the BPMs, I got the RPMs first, and I was getting about an average of 120 and a peak of up to 230, which is a lot more than I was expecting. So that is exciting. All I would have to do now is see with my current electronic setup how fast or how much power those RPMs translate to after all of the deficiencies of my voltage regulators, my rectifiers and stuff like that. All things considered though, we've got amazing things coming. It's just a matter of actually getting them here. There's been a lot of work going on. There's been a lot of improvements. And so I'm really ecstatic about where we're headed with Windmill 21. But if you're still here, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful night.